Well, the next Patreon exclusive build is going to be this Bushman from the Fang of the Sun Dougram anime. Now, don't ask me what a Fang of the Sun or a Dougram is. I read the Wikipedia explanation. Best I can tell you is there was Earth and there was some stuff happened and some turmoil and upheaval and people got in giant stompy mechas and began fighting. So that's the basic summary. But what it means is produce this really cool kit. And this is from Max Factory, the first time I'll be building something from Max Factory. Although, as I understand it, Max Factory and Good Smile Company basically are all coming out of the same place. I may be wrong about that, but they're pretty good kits. Now, my plan for the build is to just basically go with the Canon colors. I've been trying to think of some alternative schemes, and they even offer some here in the instructions. And they look cool, but at the end of the day, I just got to looking at these colors, and I thought, this thing looks like an ant to me. That head just looks like it's an ant, and those are kind of ant-like colors. I think I am going to lighten this maroon color a little bit and go with something a little lighter, maybe a little more reddish. These parts are cast in kind of a metallic grayish silver. I think I'm going to go with a lighter gray. I'm not going to have it look metallic at all. But for the most part, and then I'm going to use this orange. I like this orange. I'm going to have to figure out how to mix some of that up or find a color that I already have that would work, because I do like that orange color. But I think I'm just going to go with the Canon colors. It comes with this little motorcycle. I have no idea what it has to do with the story, but I'm not even going to be building that. I'm not going to be worried about that. But it's roughly the size of an HG Gunpla, and you'll see when I get into it. It's not a big kit, but it is 72nd scale. So in terms of scale, it's larger, so it'll offer some different possibilities with weathering and things like that. And the fit is good. The way I described it, I can't remember if it was in a vlog, a blog, or something I just thought to myself. I lose track after a while. The way I would describe this is, if you had never built a Gunpla or any Bandai kit, you would think this was a really well-fitting, well-engineered kit. Now, if you've built Bandai, if you've built Gunpla, you'll go, okay, it's not quite that. So that kind of puts it in perspective. It's a really good kit, and were it not for Bandai and Gunpla, you would go, wow, this is a wonderful kit. But having built some Gunpla, it's pretty good. So I guess when you build Bandai and when you build Gunpla, it kind of spoils you for everything else in many ways. But this is a good fitting kit overall. Now, in many ways, it's a very minimalist kit. Again, it's very much like an HG kit, but maybe even a little more minimal than some of those. These are the parts for one arm and one leg. So it's very compact, not a lot of parts. There are some seam lines, like on the joint there. You see that there's a seam line going on right there that I'll have to deal with. They're going to be, when you put together some of these parts, there are going to be some seam lines, but they're going to hang, like on this one, there's going to be a piece of armor hanging off the front, and there'll be, something on the back. So most of it looks like it's going to be covered fully or partially, which is going to help. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a simple approach to make it easy on the color separation and on the assembly and all of that. Anywhere that there's a visible seam line, I'm just going to scribe in a panel line, because that's absolutely the most drop-dead easy way to avoid having to deal with, going through any kind of gyrations to get it sanded down smooth and then painted and then masked and do all of these other crazy things. I'm just gonna make it into a panel line, and it's super simple to do that. All right, I'm going to get everything mounted up on sticks and get it primed. All right, well, I did the priming and the painting in one shot. Now, what I mean by doing it in one shot was simply that I used Tamiya paint thinned with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner and sprayed that on, and it's going to adhere as good as primer will. So it can be the paint in some of the cases, these parts like these, or in the case of the gun or a joint like this, is the basis for, is a primer for paint that I'm going to brush paint over afterwards. Now, the colors I used were, this is Tamiya XF9 Whole Red right out of the bottle, no mixing. And it's a pretty close approximation. You can see the plastic there inside, and then the color here. It's very close. And I'm a fan of not necessarily having to mix colors or quick mixes. And by quick mixes, this red color, I had the whole red in my color cup. I had sprayed most of it out, so there was just a little bit left. I put in some Tamiya flat red into the color cup and stirred it around until I got a color that I thought was similar. Again, you can see the plastic on the back side here, and then you see the color that I got over the top, and that's just eyeballing it in the color cup. Sprayed that on, and then I did the same with this. I used this color that I had mixed, and I began adding Tamiya flat yellow, and you can see on the back, you can kind of see the plastic color, a little bit of it there because I did spray down towards the bottom, and then the color there. So it's all of this is basically just whole red with some red and yellow mixed in, and then the what had started out as kind of silverish parts, I actually sprayed with Tamiya XF80 Royal Light Gray to just give a light gray color because I liked that better than the silverish look. Now there are a few places where I'm going to brush paint, like these joints here and the gun. I'm going to use lead belcher for those and make those look a little more metallic. Now, using some Citadel lead belcher, I'm going to paint all of the joint parts with this silver color. I'm also going to paint the guns, the gun and the magazine for the gun. I'm going to paint that lead belcher. The gun barrels, or these rocket barrels, I'm going to paint that with lead belcher. And then I'm going to pick out a few details on the pack. Also this grab handle that goes at the top of the pack, I'm going to paint that with lead belcher. Also the joints, the wrist joints, because those are part of the internal structure too. Basically painting things that are internal structure, mechanical pieces, painting those with lead belcher. I'm going to give the pilot a fairly simple paint scheme. I'm going to start with just some Kislev flesh from Citadel on his face. For the uniform, I'm going to use Citadel's Aberlin Sunset. I want to use this bright yellow color because it's going to be behind kind of a tinted piece of clear plastic. So I want something that'll really show up, really have some pop to it. I'm going to paint the various straps with Vallejo Sky Gray just to give a little bit of color difference when somebody looks in at it. The boots and the seat will be Vallejo German Gray. And after a quick dry with the hair dryer, I'm going to go back into some of those yellow areas with the Aberlin Sunset and just bring back some of the highlights. Well, no one's going to accuse me of being a master figure painter, but I'm okay with this. I also added some highlights back in with Vallejo Sky Gray on those straps. Just touching it in, trying to touch it into the middle of the painted areas. And then I also put just a tiny dot of the Cadian flesh tone on his nose and on the upper cheeks just to give a little more of a highlight to that. The main thing I'm going for is when somebody looks into the cockpit area through the clear canopy part, that they'll see shadow, midtones, and highlights. That's basically what I'm going for, and that they'll recognize it as a dude. On the interior of the cockpit, I'm going to paint that with some scale model, or scale, what is this stuff called? Scale color, flat black. I basically want to just disappear the interior. I want it so that when somebody looks in, it's just kind of a void, because there's no detail in there. So by painting this with flat black, it just hides everything and will absorb, especially in combination with the tinted canopy, will absorb most of the light, and it'll just be a place with the pilot sitting there. And that also works well with the fact that I painted the pilot in the yellow color, because he'll just kind of stand out against all of that. I'll do a quick dry brush of the seat with some Vallejo Sky Gray. This will just make it stand out just a little bit from the flat black interior, but not overwhelm the pilot, who's going to be a much brighter color. So this will just give some hint of detail. All right, there's a little instrument panel decal that goes right there. So I'm just going to get that in position, and then I'm just going to put some solva set on it to get it to adhere nicely. I'm going to dry brush the dark red parts with the Citadel Evil Sun Scarlet. I want to give a little bit of edge highlighting. I'm actually kind of going for a little bit of a Games Workshop type look for the edges, and almost imagining this as, okay, if I took this anime mecha design and treated it more like it was Games Workshop Warhammer style design, what would that look like? So that's what I'm going for. I'm doing this before assembling the parts so that I don't get any of the red color, because it's such a bright, powerful color. I won't get that on any of the gray parts or the other colors. Now these lighter red pieces that go on either side of the head, I'm going to dry brush with some Wild Rider red from Citadel. It's just almost an orange color. Alright, let's see if the canopy masking was a win or a lose. Now, this is that liquid mask that I put on. So I'm just peeling it off with a toothpick. Alright, I can live with that. That'll work. Now I'll just get all these parts assembled. Alright, there it is. It does look like an ant. These fire ants that I see running around our backyard, that's pretty much how they would look if they were giant mecha, which I'm glad they're not, because they're pretty fierce little things. But that's done. The canopy actually pops open like that. And no, the pilot did not fall forward. I thought that's what it was, and I actually went in and checked it, but that's the position he's supposed to be in apparently. So the canopy doesn't close super tight because it can open. I may end up gluing that, but it worked out like I wanted. You can see the pilot in there. I know the glare from the lights that I'm using makes it a little difficult to see, but you can see the pilot in there, and the color stands out, and it pretty much looks like that's a dude in there. So I'll do some other detail painting later on to get these rockets and do some panel lining and all of that, but for now I think that is what I want to get accomplished. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I think I'm going to call this a stopping point. I think it's a logical stopping point in the progression of this model. It's a fun little kit. I'm enjoying it, and it looks really cool. It's really different. It's not like other mecha designs that you see. So if you've got an interest in this, definitely check it out. It's not a real expensive kit, and it's not real difficult. It doesn't have a lot of parts, but it certainly looks cool. And of course, this is a Patreon exclusive video, so thank you for being a patron. If you're watching this, you're a patron, and hopefully, and I appreciate it so very much. I just can't express to you enough how much it means to me and my family that you support the work that I do in this way, because I couldn't do it otherwise, not at the pace that I do it with the kits and materials and stuff that I do. So thank you very much. And with all that being said, I'll leave you with one final thought, as I always like to do. In this hobby, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye. Do not mock me. I am an ant. I will bite you. Bite, 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 bite. Oh, stupid, John. Don't put that in there.